Welcome to People Theory, a podcast that explores the depths of people and ideas. I believe all people are interesting and have untold stories that captivate our minds and imagination. I'm your host, Samson. Please join me on this journey as we go over such topics as philosophy, history, religion, music, and much more.
I'll be the best above all the rest, put me to the test and expect nothing less, your check is I'm chess, what's happening next, yeah. He got the venom, a tangible weapon, no coming in second, this life is a lesson. He got a new engine from pain, it's a blessing, new focus, no guessing, just bold and obsession, all in his possession. You got their attention, I'll leave an impression and take a redemption, just kill no discretion, your mind is a weapon. 11-11, it's time for progression. You could try to play, but you're never gonna beat me. Look the other way, what I'm doing ain't easy. Bloody and stained from the people who deceive me.
Welcome. In today's podcast, I'm interviewing DebRenee Wallis, a good friend of mine who's opening up about her experience in the Rebekah Home for girls. We cover some dark topics in this episode, and even though we may laugh, remember, trauma is a hard thing to discuss. Please be respectful, and if you'd like to know more about the Rebekah Home for girls, or anything else we discussed in this video, links will be in the description. Please enjoy.
You gotta do the sneak attack and just start recording and hope they don't notice.
Right? He's like, how do you start these podcasts? He's like, it's already
Just start them. Yeah.
All right. So how have you been? Like, just in general?
Been doing pretty good. Better than usual.
That's good. That's good.
Wait, what about you?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm doing good. Obviously just started the podcast, and I was doing the whole HVAC thing, but I don't know if that's still going on because it's all slow and my boss is not giving me any work. I think he's just like waiting me out because he doesn't want to pay me unemployment, but I don't know if that's the case.
Damn, it could be though, like very well could
I don't
be.
know. Either way, I feel like I need to find another job or hope that the podcast takes off.
Feel that.
Yeah. But it's gonna take time for this to go anywhere.
It does.
But either way, I've been doing pretty good.
Good.
Oh man.
Oh yeah. I was gonna drink a beer.
So what was this? I just said it. But you said it went by like a bunch of different names. The school that you went to.
So originally it started off as the Rebekah Home for Girls, and that was under Lester Roloff, who was like really big back in the 70s. And they had a girls' home, a boys' home, like a women's home. Eventually later they tried to, there's a lot of like allegations of abuse and like some charges. So they tried to shut down the Rebekah Home from Girls, Texas did. And we ended up all getting in a van, packing up, and going to Missouri. And they changed the name at that time to like New Beginnings Girls Academy. And then I think the state of Missouri tried to shut them down. So then they moved.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, so then they moved to Florida, and I think they changed to just New Beginnings.
Okay. So how did you initially end up in the school in the first place?
So it's like a home for troubled teens type of place. But they will like tell your parents basically what they want to hear. So there was all different kinds of girls in there for different reasons. I was in there mostly because I was like depressed, and I'd been struggling with that, and my mom and dad didn't know how to deal with it. And so like when I ask them, they'll be like, well, I didn't know what else to do.
So is it like a Catholic school or?
So it's actually under Baptist, but they're like there's a lot of different kinds of Baptist. So there are more really conservative Baptists, like really strict, like no kind of new music, only hymns, only piano and organ, no other instruments. Girls can't wear pants, no braids and stuff like that.
So you guys wore like uniforms and things like that?
We did. We wore uniforms to the school. Like, yeah, and they were really strict about it. We had to wear a slip every day. So that couldn't be like 2 fingers below here, like the top of your breastbone or whatever, 2 fingers. And then it was like,
unacceptable.
Yeah, and it had to be 3 fingers below your knee. And like none of your clothes could like cup you anywhere. So everything had to be like loose. And like at school, we had to wear slip and tights or like pantyhose every day. And they would like check to make sure we were wearing a slip or we'd get in trouble.
So isn't that pretty common though for like these like the like I guess Catholic church schools or like the Christian schools to make you wear uniforms?
It is. That was just part of it. We only really had to wear the uniform at school. But
were they on like, because I did see when I was doing my research that sometimes they'll take like the uniforms and they'll be like really like almost too far with it, like the punishments if you're not like in line with wearing what they want.
Yeah, so it wasn't like based solely around like what we were wearing as far as like punishments. It was for all kinds of stuff, but yeah, we would get in trouble like if we weren't wearing a slip. Or I mean, honestly, we all lived there, so it's not like we could own anything we weren't allowed to wear. But if we fucked up as far as like the regulations of it and like when we were going to school and supposed to be wearing certain things, then we would get in trouble.
Okay, so just so I kind of like can make it like a like step by step of it. So your mom puts you in the school because you were depressed and like, you know, because it's like quote unquote school for like troubled teens, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess if we're going from the beginning, like what was going through your head when you like got put into the school?
So it was like a really surreal experience when I first got there. We drove up and it was like on this like farm, and there's like no one around, and there's this really big like dorm house, and we go inside to like meet everyone, and they gather all the girls together, and this is like a tactic they use too, and they get them all and like they start singing because you can't tell everybody's fucking depressed and weird if they're singing, and it looks like, oh, everybody's singing, everything's gonna be great. And they like will make you start singing when parents come around. So like we go inside and like they get all the girls and like they sing for a while, and then my parents drop me off with a bunch of stuff. I guess it just didn't feel real. I remember being like, oh wow, I really like am getting left here.
So did it feel off? Like, could you tell that something wasn't right when you got there, or were you kind of excited to be there? Because I can imagine there's some mixed feelings.
I wasn't excited at all. My parents had already told me some stuff about it. Like they had told me that I like wasn't going to be allowed to wear pants and like that they were strict, but I had no idea it was going to be like what it was. But I started to figure out like within an hour after arriving there. But I am like grateful that my parents at least told me that, because a lot of parents just like put their kids in the car and drove them there and didn't tell them anything and like dumped them off and were like, bye.
Well, I mean, it can, and if we don't want to, by the way, if you don't want to get anything, just let me know. But it seems like your parents at least were trying, you know, that they were putting you in the school, you know, thinking that it would help.
Yeah. And then when and they told my parents all kinds of things like that they wanted to hear too, so that they would take me there and give them their money. It's like a kids for cash thing. But they had told my parents like, yeah, like she'll have some counseling sessions and be able to like talk to people. And I mean, it's not like we weren't allowed to talk at all. So it's definitely not like that.
Okay.
But they would tell them, you know, things that sound good, like, oh, we'll be able to help her, you know, like the blood of Jesus. My parents were like, yeah, it sounds good.
Okay.
And then they had
were your parents, because I think I kind of asked this earlier, but were your parents like, they were Baptist? Were they like really into like being into Christianity and going to church?
So they weren't Baptist, my parents weren't, and they weren't that kind of Christian that like the girls can't wear pants and stuff. They were fairly devout Christians. My mom was like more involved in the church when she was younger, but they were like non-denominational, which is it's not as like strict. Like they listen to rock music and there's like women preachers and shit. So a lot different than the place they sent me to.
Okay. No, that makes sense. So you're there now. Like these girls are all singing and you're in the, I imagine you have mixed feelings. Like you're like, I don't know, I don't really want to be here kind of thing. And then like, when do you really know like the place is like, kind of messed up? Is it like right away within hours or does it take a while?
No, it's kind of right away. Like they will take all the stuff that you brought, go through it, tell you can't have any of it because it's all like worldly and sinful. And then, I don't know, from the beginning, you kind of know there was intercoms in every room. And like the first place that we went to that was in Corpus Christi, the Lester Roloff's Rebekah Home for Girls, which it was always the same place, but that building, it was a bunch of dorm rooms and there's no doors. Like we weren't allowed to have doors. So there would
They're
be a
just
room.
open all the time?
Hmm?
They're just like the door taken off the hinges?
Yeah. And there's intercoms in each room. So it'd be like a room and a bathroom in the middle and no doors anywhere.
Not even on the bathroom?
No.
So,
But in
like,
the bathroom, there was like the two dorms connected to the bathroom. So you could like see through to the other room, but there was like a indented area to use the restroom. So you just weren't supposed to go in there. There weren't supposed to be more than one person in the bathroom anyway. So it's not like you could see them going to the bathroom.
That's like jail. I don't know if you've ever been to jail, but
dude, it's probably worse.
Well,
we
when you
weren't
go to
allowed to
jail,
talk.
there's like a
No.
I'm just saying, like, I went to jail for like 5 days. It was like over something stupid. Like,
Damn.
but when you'd go, like, it was in C pod, so like, it was like minor, like basically a minimum security, area. So they left the doors open. Like I could literally walk out of my door and go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. So, but when you went to the bathroom, there was like no door, like there was no privacy. And there was kind of like a common rule, like among the inmates, like if someone's taking a poop, like you don't go in there because they want their privacy.
Yeah, as much as you can get. Everybody can already see you anyway.
Or like the showers, like you wanted one space at least in between the showers. That was another one of the like the rules.
It makes sense.
But anyway, so there's not a whole lot of privacy, and
no, never, because well, from the beginning you get like buddied off with someone and they have to be around you 24/7 and like watch what you're doing and make sure that you know the rules and you're not doing anything bad.
Is that another one of the girls that's been there?
Mm-hmm. And like
telling you like, I'm so sorry you're here, or are they?
It's a weird kind of like dynamic there because especially when we were still in that dorm in Corpus Christi and they had those intercoms in every room so they could listen in if you were talking. And there was a lot of like girls would tell on each other so they could get like favors so they wouldn't get in as much trouble. So like you can only really say certain things around certain people. So usually it's pretty safe with like a new girl, but a lot of times they wouldn't say that much unless they knew that like it was pretty safe, which was rare, but you could kind of tell.
So did you make any friends there? Like within the first, few weeks of being there, or?
Probably not within the first few weeks. Like I said, we weren't allowed to talk to each other. Like we weren't allowed to talk. And that includes communication. So we weren't allowed to like look at each other in the eyeballs. That was considered communication, and we'd get in really big trouble for it.
So did they tell you like a reason why you're not allowed to like talk with each other?
They didn't like what girls talked about.
What?
Yeah.
So they'd just be like, you can't talk to each other.
Yes. Yeah, that's how it was.
Even like facial expressions, like what if you like smiled at another girl? Like, would you get in trouble for that?
Absolutely. Big trouble.
Oh, wow.
Mhm.
Well, that's definitely abuse, because that's like, you know, I can only imagine like not being able to. I'm like a very like happy, smiley person, so
Me too.
I can only imagine like not being able to like express, emotion to anyone.
So I've had this conversation with a few people as an adult, but it's weird because like you find a way to like communicate through feelings.
Can you elaborate?
I don't know. It's when you're not allowed to talk to anybody, you have to find a way to communicate with people. And it's through, I guess maybe not as, you just have to make some eye contact, and then you just have to feel things. The more you do it, the better you get at it. It's not
They're like real
easy
subtle.
to describe. It is subtle,
like,
but you without even talking to anyone, you understand like who you are gonna want to talk to when you can.
Okay. No, that
Later.
It's probably like little subtle gestures, like a little smirk there, a little nod
Mm-hmm.
there, kind of thing.
Yeah, small things.
Maybe like a brush, like they like grab your hand real gently, like, kind of thing.
Yeah. There was, dude, I did fall asleep a lot of nights, like holding another girl's hand, bawling my eyes out when I knew no one could see. That's all you can do. But was sometimes that they let us talk, like on the weekend, like for a few hours. So we got some few breaks, but it wasn't very often, and it wasn't even every weekend.
Okay. So you're there. You're not allowed to talk. They've taken all your stuff away. You're can't really make friends, and like at least right away, because there's
no talking,
right? They're like, nope, you can't talk to each other.
Yeah, no friends.
We laugh at now, but that's got to be horrible.
Oh God, it was so bad.
And then, so like, what was like the food like? So like a typical day, I guess. What was like if we were to go through the day, like
okay,
the school day? You're now
kind
like,
of anticipated this happening, so I've been like trying to remember what a typical day was like. So you'll wake up at like, I think it was 6-ish a.m. Please don't crucify me if anybody that goes with me watches this.
No, it's fine.
Really blacked this out of my memory as much as possible, so I'm gonna try my best here. So we'd wake up at like 6 a.m. or so. We would go eat breakfast, which was sucky, especially on the farm, because we had to eat goat's milk that they milked themselves, and it was fucking nasty and like chunky. I didn't like it. Then we'd eat breakfast, and then we'd sometimes, I think it was on Wednesdays and Sundays, it was either 2 or 3 days a week, we'd come back. We had to wake up extra early so we could lay on the ground and pray, but it was like we could take a really careful nap if you didn't make any heavy breathing noises. And then we'd get ready for school, and we had to clean in the morning, and we had to clean really good, because they would come back and like when you're in the military, and if you don't clean good enough, they'll destroy your room and they'll just rip everything apart, and then you have to come back, you're in giant trouble, and you have to re-clean everything. But they would come by and like spray everything in the morning so we could clean our rooms. We had to get dressed, and then we'd go to school, and the school was pretty bad. They used what is it called? It's called the PACE program, something accelerated. It was really bad. Our teacher that we had, that was over all of us, every grade, everybody worked at their own pace, so that wasn't like you were like going to a classroom with kids your age. You sat at a desk alone doing a single book. And like the person who was overhead of all of us didn't even graduate high school. So it gets to a certain point where you're like, I don't understand this math. And he's like, I don't either. You're not allowed to ask anyone.
And you're about my age, so this is before the age of like cell phones where you could just Google something. And
We
it
wouldn't
sounds
have
like
been allowed to have a cell
yeah,
phone, dude.
they wouldn't know about you. Yeah. You're not even allowed to talk.
Yeah. I really don't think that would have
So
been
how
okay.
do they like break it up like a regular school, like in class segments, like 90-minute segments, or is it like you sit in the class for an hour and then like do they give you breaks, or is it just 8 hours sitting at a table looking at a book?
Pretty much. Like we get a break for lunch. I don't really remember getting much other breaks, but you do have to like get up to go grade your own work.
So you grade, the teacher didn't grade it?
No. You do everything yourself. You go through like a book, and at the end you take a test and you grade yourself through it the whole way. And if you've done good enough at the end, you move on to the next one and you do so many of them, and that's a grade.
So what stops you from just like giving yourself A's?
They can check the work. Like they can go through the book and make sure you're not just like not doing it, I guess.
So what was like the book emphasizing? Was it like reading, writing, and arithmetic?
So, okay, so and then this is interesting too. Yes, there was other subjects as well, like science and like Spanish. I took some Spanish. I took etymology. But without a teacher and without other students to work with and without any kind of tools or any kind of outside anything, for instance, we weren't allowed to read anything except for the Bible. I've read the Bible front to back 6 times, every word, because that's all we were allowed to read. So when it came to something like English, you didn't get to read a book. You got to read like some paragraphs that were in there. And it's all super biased because this is like extra conservative Christian stuff.
Okay.
So really weird.
So is any time like dedicated to like say Bible study throughout the day, or?
Yeah. So every day we had to quote chunks of the Bible. There was probably like, I couldn't even tell you. And it was so culty sounding. We'd be like, Psalm 121, blah, 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 and like say all these Bible verses. And at first you go through and you have to read them, and eventually, like, dude, you just memorize that shit. And we said the same ones every single day. I think the whole process probably took about 45 minutes of us like quoting these Bible verses. I saw a video one time of us doing it on YouTube, and I was like, oh my God, that's like kind of creepy.
I'll try to find it if I can, but so the typical day you wake up. I'm just trying to make sure I understood. There was
Go to school, come back, quote some Bible verses, probably go to church at night.
Was there any like cause in like when I was a kid, I would get excited for like recess. So did you guys get like outside time, or?
Sometimes, but it wasn't all the time. So when we did live on that farm, there was more girls there before they started like moving around. And then they had like the farm, and they farmed the farm so that we could eat that food. And sometimes they would call girls out from doing school.
They'd make you work on the farm?
Yeah, but we actually liked it because it was like we got to get away, and the people that did the farm work with us let us talk and stuff. So it was not as bad as being there with everyone else.
So
it was like
sorry, I really have to. I'm just really curious about this whole not talking thing. So like at lunchtime, would you be able to talk? Like if we were having a meal at lunch and I'm your fellow girl, like
no, I can't even look at you.
Oh, geez. So what were like some of the punishments if like we were talking?
Okay, so like you'd start getting demerits. And if you got a certain amount of demerits, and it's pretty much at their whim. And I think it's like 5 or 10 or something, but it's kind of whatever they want. They'll start making you exercise at night for it. And like, okay, I say exercise really lightly, like it's not good. They would make us do the thing where you sit on the wall like you're sitting in a chair, but you're squatting and put books in your arms. But for like a really long time, for like 10, 15 minutes, they would make us run laps, but for like 3 hours, not like 5 times or 10 times. One time I had to hold my hands above my head like this, which no big deal, right? But for like 8 hours, like I couldn't feel my arms afterwards. That it was really bad. I remember one time in particular, I don't remember what I did, but I got in trouble for something, and they made me exercise outside until I think it was like 4:30 or 5 in the morning. It was like right before we had to start getting ready for school. And like I felt like I was gonna die. My body was like, what the fuck? And I just came inside. I don't know how I got away with it. I went into someone else's room and just like collapsed and started crying and couldn't stop because I was like shocked about the whole thing. But it was stuff like that. Like it was kind of at their whim. And if you got in a lot of trouble, like really bad trouble, they would make you wear a red and white checkered shirt. So everybody knew you were in trouble. You really weren't allowed to communicate with them, and they called them red shirts. So if you communicated like and looked at a red shirt, like if you communicated with another girl, you'd like get a demerit or get in trouble unless it was like constant. But if it was like with a red shirt, you also got put on red shirt. So they were like extra ostracized. When you're on red shirt, you have to stand with your nose against the wall like this all day long, unless you're doing like schoolwork. But any other time you have to, or unless you're like eating, but any other time that you're not like eating or doing schoolwork or going to the bathroom, your nose has to be on the wall. You're not allowed to lean on it. You had to stay up and do exercise every night. You had to, which sucks because you're losing sleep. You had to wake up, I think, like 30 minutes or an hour earlier than everyone else to do exercises. I think the ones in the morning didn't suck as bad.
So like who's enforcing all this? Is it like the teachers, or like what, who's like making you guys, making sure hey, don't talk to each other? And
So they used the girls mostly. Like, so then there's this whole like hierarchy system within, and they use the girls against each other. That way it prevents anybody from getting too close and makes people want to be like, and would make the girls want to be like in favor so they would get in less trouble. And they wanted the girls to like tell on the other girls or get the other girls in trouble. They would make girls hold girls down, like if they did get in trouble.
so like wait, they'd like physically like hold them down?
Mm-hmm.
So I imagine, is there like fights starting from that? Or
Sometimes, I mean, in that situation, every once in a while, somebody just like freaks the fuck out. And then they're like, everybody hold her down, which is definitely going to make her stop freaking out. But, you know, no, like,
no, I just imagine myself, like I would freak out.
yeah. And if
So
you
did
freak
your
out, you got
parents-
like 3 girls holding you down, and one of them might be your friend. And then you're like, oh, well, this is weird. But they do it on purpose. That way
So
it's.
when your parents come to visit, are you like being like, take me home, this place is crazy? Or
So this is another. Your parents. You, all right. Communication with your parents. You are only allowed one 15-minute phone call a month. And while you're on the phone, they're on the other line ready to disconnect it if you say anything they don't like.
okay.
So if you start saying anything negative, like, I don't like it here, they'll hang up the call.
What about like in-person visitation? Like what if I was your parents and I just showed up?
So you wouldn't be allowed to until like 6 months later. Obviously, if you're like, I'm taking my child away, they can't really stop you, but that's what they tell you at the beginning. Like, it's going to be 6 months. This will be the best for them. Like, that
So
way,
how
after
long
6
were you in the
months,
school? Were you in there for 6 months?
I was in there for 2 years.
Oh, 2 years. So when it's the Rebekah Rebekah School for Girls. Is that what it's called?
Originally.
Yeah, so you're there and you're like basically being put through like psychological abuse. Dude, like I imagine, do like some girls try to run away?
Yes.
And what happens if did anyone succeed or?
Yeah, every once in a while. I think the longest somebody was able to hide for like a couple weeks. Usually after that, sometimes they'd come back. A lot of times, though, they'd just get sent to like a worse and more strict house, like Hephzibah house. That was like the next step up.
Yeah, because I watched that. It was like a Dr. Phil special on the Hephzibah.
Yeah.
I was like, oh God, like
very similar.
No, a lot of the things you're saying are very similar. The only thing I would say that is, and there could be other things, but the Hephzibah house, what's notable about that one is that like the teachers and stuff would like hold them down and then like there'd be physical abuse on top of the psychological. The sound of it, like, you guys didn't really have that, or?
We had corporal punishment. There was one girl that got like beat with a mini blind rod, but it wasn't as bad, I don't think, as some of those other homes. I think it was not as much, and they were really careful that they only did it to girls who basically got abandoned there. They wouldn't have done something like that with me because my parents, even though they followed the rules and only communicated with me as they were supposed to, and they only did it with the girls who really got like, they were there until they were 18 and weren't gonna leave.
So did you ever try to like rebel for being there, or did I
ever try to what?
Rebel?
After I got out. But while I was there?
Yeah.
No. There's nothing you can do. You're not allowed to contact anyone. They've already told your parents that you're going to say that stuff. If they found out that you tried to tell your parents and your parents didn't let you come home, then you get in really bad trouble when you come back. So you're kind of fucked with telling them if they, oh, well, they said you were going to say that. Great. Well, I better not stop talking because now if it gets back to them, like, I'm extra fucked. There's nothing you can do. You can't talk to anyone. You can't communicate with any other adults. You have no communication with the outside world whatsoever. Rebelling is just going to make your life more miserable, and it's already miserable.
I almost feel like as a parent, I'd be a little suspicious if they're like, she's going to hate it here. She's going to say she wants to leave and that we're abusing her. That's none of it's true. It's like, how bad is it here? Like, tell them that, like, right off the bat. I mean, that.
I kind of thought the same thing. Like, how did you not see a bunch of red flags? And I was like, I wasn't even allowed to communicate with you without anyone else, like, listening. And they were like, well, we didn't know that. Well, I wasn't allowed to tell you. I don't know. Yeah, it's weird.
It's like a conflict of interest.
And it was when the internet just kind of started, like, getting popular, so it's not like everybody was Googling everything at the time. So Google did exist, and I'm kind of like, I feel like maybe.
Yeah, but it was probably at the time like you still had to print out like MapQuest and stuff.
Yeah, it was. Thanks.
So no, I remember it, so that's why. But anyway, so how long was it Rebekah's school before they like took off?
Oh, gosh.
Like, how long do you think you were in the school before it, like?
I'm trying to think. So I probably went like 2000-ish or 2001. I was like 13, or I might have. It wasn't long that they were still under Rebekah. I think it was about 6 months, because I think when I got my 6-month visit, we were still in Corpus Christi. And your 6-month visit, you're not really allowed to leave. Like, you can go with your parents for a few nights, but you have to stay around town. And I'm pretty sure we were still in Corpus. And it was maybe 7 or 8 months in that they started moving us around, and a lot of people left that first go around, and then even the second one when we moved from Texas to Missouri, we lost over half the girls because we used to have like probably 50 or 60, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, we got 20 people packed up in this fucking van.
So wait a second, if we could rewind for a second. So like there's the 6-month visit, and that's what's still the farm, right? And they like come, and like your parents come and see you, and during that, were you like, dude, get me the heck out of here?
Yeah. Yeah, I was.
Please.
Yeah, and
I'll be a good
they
girl.
were like,
please.
Yeah, and they were like, no. They said you were going to say this, that you just want to come home. Of course you want to come home, but this is going to be good for you. It wasn't good for me. I'm really fucked up about it all.
So, and I know I might be kind of jumping back, but I did want to ask this because you kind of briefly mentioned it. Like, you were on the farm. Was the food pretty good? Because like a lot of times,
no. It
like,
was
from the Hephzibah house, because it's the only thing I could really compare it to. Like, a lot of the girls were saying it was really bad food and that they were like undernourished and stuff like that. But was that the case, or was it like you were at least being fed adequately?
We were being fed adequately, but the food was foul.
So like jail food, or do you think it was
yeah, like really cheap, disgusting, nasty, industrial sized.
Okay,
gross
so
food.
Just not good food, but at least were
it was enough
starving.
to feed us. Yeah.
Like, and maybe this is a little but you like girls that were like they weren't not having their periods because of malnutrition and stuff like that, or like
I didn't have my period the whole time I was there.
Oh, really? And
I don't think it was from malnutrition. I think it was from stress.
From stress? Okay.
Yeah. I stopped having it the entire 2 years I was there. I never had it once, and a lot of girls didn't.
That makes sense because you're all stressed out.
Yeah.
So after that 6 months, when did the school just finally like yeet and like leave where it was? Like, we can't be in the farm anymore.
Wait, when?
Yeah, because you had the 6-month visit, right?
Yeah.
Your parents come and then you're like, dude, get me out of here. And they're like, no, this is good for you.
And then a few months after that, they're like, we've got to move. The devil's trying to shut us down in Texas. So we got to go to Missouri. A lot of the parents are like, oh, this is kind of sus. So a lot of the girls got to go home at that point.
So what do you think caused them to like try to get shut down? Do you think it's because some of the girls got out and they told their parents, and their parents actually believed them, and they were like, wow, this isn't cool?
So there was like a few things happening. Some of it was like, yeah, some girls had gotten out and talked to the news. The news actually ended up coming and trying to talk to us one day while we were all eating lunch. But dude, we're not going to say anything. You're going to walk away and we're going to be on the fucking wall doing exercises till 5 a.m. Like, no thanks, you know? So we're not going to say anything bad while they were there. And that was like a month or two before we left. But some girls had gotten out and tried to talk to people. The internet was picking up. Also, one of the, like way back in the 70s when it was under Lester Roloff or whatever, and he was like a big, more popular, he had like a radio broadcast. They would, I lost my train of thought.
We were talking about how the school got shut down. And then,
oh yeah, okay. So there was like Lester Roloff, and then after him it was, I think his name was Wiley Cameron, and his wife Faye Cameron. And she got in trouble for abusing the girls and was ordered not to be around them and to be around that home. But she was always around us. She just wasn't supposed to be legally. But they switched the names of who was over it so that nobody knew. And then they're like, okay, well, we'll just give it to Bill and I forget his wife's name, McNamara. That's who was over it while I was there. It was Bill McNamara and his Bill and Jennifer McNamara, brother Matt. Ugh.
So were they what were those people like? Bill and Jennifer, real like
fucking awful.
jerks?
Really mean. They were really mean. They would terrorize us. He would walk around the dorm. Sometimes he'd walk around wake everybody up at 2 a.m. and come turn all the lights on and tell us that we were disgusting and we smelled like masturbation. And I'm like, I was sleeping. And and then he'd get up. Everybody had to stand up and he'd come and scream in your face and spit flying all over you. And he'd be like, oh, your grandma has cancer. It's your fault. You need to get right with God. And he would pick on people individually about stuff like that and really fucked up stuff that's definitely not your fault and be like, it's all your fault. For me, because I was adopted, he'd always be like, and your parents didn't even want you because you need to get right with God and you're not good enough and stuff like that. And other girls, it would be like, oh, your mom died. It's because you need to get right with God. And we're fucking 13, 14, 15.
Yeah, no, that's definitely mental abuse.
It was bad. And it was all the time, just screaming and face red and shaking and telling us really awful stuff like that.
And who is that? What was his name again?
Bill McNamara.
Bill. Now, when it was under Bill, who was the guy before him? It was the Lester Roloff, right?
Wiley and Faye Cameron, and then it was Lester Roloff originally.
So were all of them like that? Were they all just jerks? Or do you think...
If you listen to some of Lester Roloff's old podcasts, you hear some really fucked up stuff. He'll be like, you need to... what do the Christians say? Something about... I don't know. How basically corporal punishment's good and I don't know. Really
spare the rod, spoil the child kind of rhetoric.
Yeah. Stuff like that. And I think it just got worse. I think Lester Roloff probably wasn't as bad, and maybe it wasn't considered as bad because it was the 70s, but I'm pretty sure it was really bad when Wiley and Faye Cameron
you were there
did it.
When Bill and his wife Jennifer were there?
Yeah. Because when the lady that was there that was ordered not to be around us but was around us all the time anyway, they had a room, like a quiet room that they would make, if girls were freaking out, they would tie them down in this room and force them to listen to Lester Roloff's tapes from him preaching, because he used to be on his radio broadcast over and over all day long.
I get, so the more I listen to you, the more it does feel cult-like, especially with them worshiping these tapes from Lester Roloff. That sounds almost like, in Scientology where that dude wrote that book and then everybody's like, oh, he's a god kind of thing.
Yeah.
So they're basically going off what Lester Roloff said and using his words as gospel.
Pretty much. But also anything that they think sounds good and fits their agenda that anybody's said about girls can't preach or wear pants or braid their hair. There's a lot of really weird rules. For a while, they were making everybody wear their hair the exact same, which was half up, half down, because one girl wore it like that, and Brother Mac said he liked it. So then for a year, everybody had to wear their hair like that. And then Brother Mac came out and was like, why is everybody's hair the same? And we didn't have to.
So I can only imagine what that has to do to your psyche if they're always beating down your image of a woman, right? So they're telling you, you're a hideous creature and that
you stink, literally,
worthy, and
everything that's going wrong is your fault because you're not doing good enough, I guess.
demonizing your sexuality and things like that. So I mean, that can't be good.
It wasn't.
So going back to like them getting caught, or they're starting to like figure out, hey, this school isn't cool. They move and you go with them. You're on that, like, it's like a big minivan or bus.
It's like a tour bus.
A bus.
So
okay.
they had a choir, and then like I did get to be in the choir. But if you're in the choir, you got to travel around more.
So
and that's what the tour
that
bus
was when you were with.
for.
That was when you were in the Rebekah school, right?
Yeah, but it was always the same. All they did was change the name, trying to hide from the state, pretty much.
Okay, and I understand that they're all the same, but like, it sounds like, am I right in saying that most of your time was spent with when they were known as the Rebekah school?
No.
No? Okay.
It was under New Beginnings.
So they
for the
moved,
majority of the time.
when they moved, what did they get called? That was New Beginnings, or was it something else?
Yeah, so they were like, all right, we got to move to Missouri. Satan's trying to get us. Everybody get in this tour bus. We're New Beginnings now. So we did. We got in this fucking bus with no air conditioner, broke down a few times, drove to Missouri, stayed in a triple wide in a place called Devil's Elbow that doesn't exist anymore. A triple wide with like 50 bunk beds in it. It was not a good time.
What was the condition of the building? Was it like run down, or was it, man, it was okay?
So when we went to Missouri, we were like piggybacking onto a boys' home that was there. I can't remember the name of the boys' home. I want to say Marvelous Grace, but I might be wrong. And that was in
Did you ever
Devil's Elbow.
talk to those boys? Did like you
No.
see them?
So
or?
if a boy walked by, Samson, like we can't even look at each other in the eyes. If a boy was near us, we had to like put our head down and our eyes down, like hold our head down. We weren't even allowed to look up at all.
So do you think that other boys' school, or do you think they were getting bad treatment as well, or it's
Couldn't tell you. We never saw them. I never saw the boys. Never.
Okay, so you're piggybacking on the boys' school, and you're
staying at like a property they had there. So and they let us use like their facilities for like eating and stuff.
Did it get more strict, or did it slack up a little bit after that? Because it sounds like they don't have the same structure they did before. Like they don't have the intercom system and things like that.
Correct. But ironically, it got worse because even though they had the intercoms and stuff, if you barely whispered and mouth lipped and it was like 2 a.m, usually you could get away with it. You just had to be really careful. Or you could like go in the bathroom and hope no one noticed. Like you could still try to sneak stuff. There was more. Plus there was 2 girls per bedroom and then 2 girls on the other side of your bedroom. So they can't keep you from looking at each other in the eyeballs in your own fucking room. You can't hear that on the intercom. So then all of a sudden we're all like shoved in this triple wide with like 50 bunk beds, and all the people that are supposed to be watching you are right fucking there, and they don't have to walk down the hall. And it probably got worse for a while.
So
just because everything was such a clusterfuck.
Have you made friends by now? Like, is there some girls you're tight with, or?
Yeah, I did. I made a lot of friends there.
Okay, so you've made friends by this time. Is it still got the same mentality of like, I'm gonna tell on you if you look at me kind of thing, or is that just depend on the girl?
It depends on the girl, and it's not like I'm going to tell on you if you look at me. It's more like you have to be careful what you talk about when you do talk, because it could be someone that you thought you were cool with, and then all of a sudden they're like, man, I'm going to get in trouble. So I'm going to be like, dude, I heard Ashley singing a song from the radio. That's like, and then all of a sudden like all hell breaks loose. And they're just trying to gain favor by being a tattletale, which makes sense if you're stuck there until you're 18 and you know your parents aren't coming to get you. You want to be one of those people, I guess. You don't want to be the one that's always in trouble if you're going to be there for 6 years and you can't fucking leave.
So you've made a few friends and you're in that triple wide. And you said it gets worse, so they're more on top of you. Is the day-to-day about the same, like the same kind of pace program? Same kind of
Kind of, but it feels different because we don't have as big of an area and as much stuff to do. It kind of sucked.
So you had it, from what I've heard, you had it bad, but it wasn't as bad as some of the girls. So do you know if like, and this may be kind of, but do you know if some of the girls were like physically abused or even assaulted in any way?
Yes, but not like, yeah. There was a one girl who got beat with the mini blind rod.
Yeah, there was that girl. But I mean, did you hear anything else? Like,
mostly it was just girls holding girls down. Corporal punishment was always recorded.
Okay.
So they would write it down. Hey, we like beat you with this thing 4 times.
Man, I kind of wrote, so that guy, oh man, I should have wrote it down. His name, the original guy from the 70s.
Lester Roloff.
Lester, dude, that guy sounds Russian.
He's
Just
not.
I'm just saying, I am Lester Roloff.
Nice.
It sounds like
It does.
obey.
Like a metal band.
Right? That Lester Roloff guy sounds intense. So would they preach his like sermon thing to you a lot, or is that just when you were in trouble? Make you listen?
No, it was a lot.
It was a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. And
I
then
listen to his broadcast all the time.
oh man, I bet that probably is like probably brings flashbacks if you had to listen to it again.
It does.
So from there, did you still get like recess and things like that?
Barely. When I very first got there, we got recess every once in a while. Like once a week, maybe, because we were on that farm and they had a place to have recess because they had like a school building. Then when we moved, it was like maybe once a week, maybe if they felt like it. When we were in Missouri, we were like in these like mountains. It washed away because it was so hilly and it like flooded, and that city doesn't exist anymore. Devil's Elbow. But there was like all these, I don't know, ponds. I actually got in trouble and I got put on red shirt because I put somebody dared me to swallow a frog.
And you did?
Yeah. They did.
That's pretty funny.
And then they told on me.
Man, I'm surprised you get sick from that. Good thing it wasn't.
I didn't, but I got in really big trouble, and I had to write like a 10-page paper on why what I did was wrong, which was not easy to do because 10 pages.
So when did so from there, how long was that? When they were in that like outbuilding, like piggybacking?
I don't think we were probably there like 6 months or so.
Okay. And then
but they would take us outside sometimes. It wasn't recess, but to do something. We were there like 6 months.
Okay. And then they moved again? They like apply you a while back on the bus to go again?
Same shit. Devil's coming to shut us down. Meh. But it's all government shit behind the scenes. Like the states are like, yo, dude, this can't keep happening. Like it's a issue with church and state pretty much. So what was happening is, since it's a religious place, the state couldn't come in and like regulate it like they can a normal school. Like, obviously this can't happen at a public school, right? But since it's a Christian school, the state's not allowed to come in because of separation of church and state or something. And that's why it's like the laws started changing. So like George Bush was changing the laws actually and being like, okay, dude, we got to go in here and like regulate these places. There's a bunch of kids here and a bunch of like allegations of abuse. We can't we got to go in and see. And they were like, you can't come in and tell us what to do. We're leaving to go to another state where they're not going to do that. So they went to Missouri, and Missouri was like, I don't know, man. Seems kind of like we should probably go in there and see what's going on. And they were like, you can't look at us. We're going to Florida. So
Oh no, now they went to Florida.
yeah, and there they stayed until the internet got so popular that people quit sending their kids there.
So did you go to Florida as well?
I did.
So how long were you in Florida?
I want to say my last year, then. I'm wildly estimating.
No, I
I
understand.
really have big blank holes in my memory from this place. Like, I have pretty bad PTSD from it. Like, there's a lot of like just blank spots.
No, I understand. And I'm probably asking some questions that are like probably digging some crap up, so it's fine.
It's okay.
So was it the same story in Florida? Like, or were things different at all?
Florida was a little better, and it was a little better for me in particular. So when we got to Florida, there was 2 dorms we could stay in, and one of them was like, I think we called them like the big dorm and the little dorm or something. I don't remember. But the big dorm had like a bunch of bunk beds in it, and obviously we've lost a lot more girls at this point. So now we're really down to like 15 or 20. And so I think they had room for like most of the girls, but not quite all of them in the main dorm. And that one was where Brother Mac was attached to it. So it was like the dorm and all these girls in their bunk beds, and then like Brother Mac's house touching it. So he could just come out at any time and tell you stink, like masturbation, if he wanted to at 3 a.m. and to stand up so he could spit on your face. But I got to go to the little dorm, and it was not as bad over there. Like, only the like better girls got to go over there. So I was kind of surprised, because I never tried to. I don't like to get in trouble. So like I wasn't like trying to rebel there's no point in it. You might as well just play their stupid game until you get a leave. You have to. So I never tried to hurt anybody to get on top either. So I was just kind of like, all right, if I can just like mind my own business, stay out of trouble, like maybe I won't get in a lot of trouble without having to like step on anyone to do it. But usually the most favorited girls were the girls that like were willing to step on, because those are the girls they can use against the other girls. And that's how their whole mind washing works, I guess.
So do you think some of those girls had like developed like Stockholm syndrome, where they actually kind of cared for their captives, in a weird way?
Yeah. So a lot of the girls, it's really weird. Like a lot of the girls, I even did it when you finally get it, because you forget what the world is like. You totally forget. Like you're totally out of the loop. You don't know music. You don't know styles. You don't know how people are talking. You don't know any other way of life. So then when you're like excited to leave, and then when you leave, you're like, oh, maybe I should go back. Maybe I can help these other girls. And like a lot of the girls say it or want to at first. And a lot of the girls do. One of my really close friends that was there with me, she stayed a long time, and like went back after she was like able to leave at 18 or whatever. And a couple years later, she was like, what the fuck am I doing? Like,
so did any of the people there ever like realize that what was going on was wrong, and like either try to do anything about it, or
like the people that worked there?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody thought that what they were doing was like inherently wrong. or I don't think they would have let anyone work there that did. Like, I'm sure they knew that, like, it wasn't great, but we deserved it, or we were there for a reason, or this is ultimately better for us. I don't think anybody that worked there really some of the girls that were girls there then came back and worked there and then left. Yes, we're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I can't believe like I came back in that role and had to like treat you guys like that. But not any of the like just strictly I work here people.
Okay. Because it sounds like some of the stuff happening there was just strict. And then other things were like, that's straight up abuse.
A lot of it was borderline. And that's why, like, it's tricky to say, like, with mental abuse, things affect people differently. Especially something you say to someone. It cannot bother someone and really fuck up somebody else.
So like I can relate to the whole thing of like Bill like waking you up at like 3 a.m. Maybe not to like that same extent, but like my dad would like splash water on me in the morning and start screaming at me like first thing in the morning. And I remember like how traumatizing that kind of was, like to be just screamed at, and then like
what did I do? I just woke up. I'm still trying to orient myself. And plus now you're expected not to react. You can't react back. You can't yell. You can't be like, what the fuck? You just have to like sit there and take it until it stops.
Yeah. So, I mean, without going like into my whole life story, like I've suffered my own like mental abuse. So I can definitely understand that kind of like walking on eggshells feeling you have, like probably around that person. And then, it sounds even worse because at least with my own dad, like he at least he did love me. So it wasn't just, it wasn't all hate all the time. So
sometimes at least he'd come back and be like, yo, I love you, want an ice cream?
Yeah. Like, like he might be mean or like do that, but then later realize like what he did was wrong. And then he would apologize or, I'm like, well, are you going to do it again?
Never got any apologies.
So that's what I'm saying. It's like, but I still can feel like I can kind of relate in the fact that like, just the like that feeling of like just being disoriented and then someone like, because my dad would kind of do that to me. He'd like make you feel like he could make you feel amazing, and then in the next sentence make you feel like you were
fucking
like
power trip. Yeah, why you gotta like lord over a bunch of kids? Does that make you feel like a big strong man?
Well, it sounds like with Bill it's even worse. It's like at some point I could stand up to my dad, right? But like with Bill, like you're all females. Like what are you gonna do to Bill?
And young.
Yeah, and young and naive and don't know the difference, right? So
yeah. So I don't know. There's kind of a divide. Like some of the girls. So also there's like all different kinds of girls there. Like some of the girls were like bad girls and like were in and out of jail already and like had already had 3 miscarriages and like bad girls really getting in trouble,
And maybe
then some of the girls like me just,
Do you think some of the structure could have helped some of them? I mean, even though
maybe
it's fucked up, but there's still structure there.
Maybe in a different setting where you weren't getting like blamed for, I don't know. Some of the stuff he said to us was really fucked up about, and he always made it personal too. So if he knew anything about you and your family, like he would make you feel really bad about it. Or he'd just pick on you for the way you looked or something. Like it was not good. He made some girls that were,
Do you know if Bill is in prison now?
He's not.
No?
I think they're running like a women's home now because everybody stopped sending their teenagers there. Because we kept trying to contact everybody and be like, yo, don't. So now when you Google it, it's all of our stuff rather than like their stuff. And so people quit going. So now I think they just do a women's and they choose to go. So.
Okay. I wonder if he's still treats them the same way. I can imagine,
I wonder that too. But yeah, there's like a whole divide. Like some of the girls and like, so there's girls like that are like really rough, bad girls. And then there was girls like me that just kind of forgot they wanted to be alive. And I'm sensitive. Like I've never even been in a fight. Like I'm a sensitive person. So, but some of the girls are like, oh, it wasn't abusive. Like, yeah, it sucked and it was hard and it wasn't great and I didn't like it, but I wouldn't say it was abusive. While then there's other girls like, I'm really fucked up about it. And like other girls are too. So there's kind of like a divide. Like some people are like, oh, it wasn't the worst. And some people are like, yeah, actually it was. So I say people react to things differently. Not everybody can handle the same things.
That's true. Like I kind of went into it a little bit like with me and like what happened when I was growing up. I'm not going too crazy detail, but my dad, he would like do drugs, and like I think that really kind of messed with him. And then with that, he'd end up being abusive, and it wasn't always physical. I think a lot of it was more emotional abuse more than anything. But like the way I look at things, I'm a very positive, upbeat person. And so I look at it as like, I can't change the past and it is what it is kind of thing. And I just try to look at the positive and kind of just move on, like forgive and forget kind of thing. Like I still loved my dad despite everything that happened. While on the other side, I feel like my sister was very resentful. I don't want to speak for her, but I know at some point she was very resentful for what happened. And
yeah,
the way like I took it and the way she took it were two different viewpoints. So
and it was the same thing that happened to you.
Yeah, so it's like even though we went through the same thing, it was different. Well, different because she's a female and things like that, and she was younger, and she had a different perspective. But still, like we were in the same place. We saw a lot of the same things, but the viewpoints were different. So
I didn't hurt different. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like she took it a lot harder. So I can kind of see that. Like I still see that like, yeah, it was abuse, but I think I kind of dealt with it better, like, and emotionally than maybe at some point in my life. I don't know. But how people deal with their emotions differently.
It's true. Well, yeah, it's just like in the home, the girls that had shitty lives outside of the home took it better.
Well, maybe it was that being there at that school was better than being beat by their dad when they got home or sexually
exactly
abused,
or like some like or like going to jail again.
Yeah, which I don't know, man. For the sound of it, I don't know why you'd want to go there instead of jail, because jail sucks, but jail's more of like isolation. Like you're alone a lot, like kind of in your own thoughts, and you could at least talk.
Yeah, you're alone all in your own thoughts when you're not allowed to talk.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So like, but the like not being able to talk to people, like you could at least talk to people in jail.
Did they time your showers? We had 6 minutes.
Well, it sounds like that you basically were in like almost like a halfway house kind of thing, or jail.
They rationed out our toilet paper too.
Yeah, it's the same stuff they do in jail. They'll like, you have a blanket, you have like a little cot, some jail shoes, and a jumper.
Yeah, I didn't handle it well. Like I went in because I was depressed. It didn't help.
No, I'm just saying, like, even though like I don't think jail is mentally good for your mental health. Like I was in there. I was in there for like 4 days, and this is like embarrassing. It wasn't even like that long, but I remember like finally, like it was like the first time I had been like locked in a room where I couldn't see the sun, and getting out. I knew I wasn't going to be there. The fucked up part is I knew I wasn't going to be there forever. It was like a traffic charge. But when I got out, I was so happy that I fucking kissed the ground. I was like, thank God I could see the sun. I went and got a cheeseburger. It was like, it was funny, but it definitely I didn't feel good. Like mentally, like I was like, if I would have been, I learned a lot about myself doing that. Like if I would have got put in prison, I would not be the same person coming out. Like
So
I
I
already knew that.
was thinking, I had a thought. A lot of people that are in prison for a really long time, like 20, 25 years, don't know what life is like outside of prison and like go back on purpose because that's all they know and are used to. And they're like, well, I don't have to worry about anything in here. At least I have food and a place to sleep, even if it's gross food and an uncomfortable place to sleep. And like,
Yeah.
I know the rules in here. I get used to it. Like that is pretty common. It's the same
I've
kind of
heard
like
that.
concept.
So kind of the last thing I wanted to go over really was like kind of like like if you were religious before going in there, I bet afterwards you probably had a different viewpoint.
Yeah. I did.
So what like that experience? I mean, so I'm guessing you're an atheist now.
Yeah. I am. I guess I probably thought I was a Christian because I wasn't sure before I went in. And then
But you're a kid,
I
right?
had to be yeah, I'm a kid. This is what my parents say. I don't know. Sounds okay to me, I guess. There's probably a God, is how I thought. I don't know about all of these weird stories, but there's probably a God who loves me, right? Like, as a kid, that's what I thought. And then, like, started getting beat in Jesus's name. And I kind of like was like, this isn't right. So we, I don't know. I think a lot of it too was like, I read the Bible 6 times. Dude, that book is ridiculous. And if you really know, there's a lot of really questionable stories, really contradicting information in there. I think that really kind of started it. Plus, I'm like rebellious by nature. I can't help it. If you tell me to do something, I don't want to do it, and vice versa. Or like, I have to learn the hard way. I've kind of always been like that. Like, I need to learn the hard way, or I won't learn. And
So I used to think that everyone was like that. Then I realized no, that's just me.
Yeah, it feels better to think that everybody's like that.
I tend to have like anybody that has, it probably came from being from an abusive childhood, and that I have a problem with authority. So if someone is too like rough with me, I tend to get kind of aggressive. Like I don't like being, if you're really aggressive towards me, I may not just, I'm not just gonna like punch you in the face or necessarily just get aggressive towards you, but I will distance myself from you because I'm like, I'm gonna have problems where if you keep doing that, then I will snap. Like it's like knowing myself kind of thing, where if I get pushed too much, then because of like I know like where I've come from, that like I could just, it's like like I try to be the dog that growls, right? But
Yeah.
sometimes I'll just bite because I know, because of what I've been through. So I try not to do that. I try not to like just bottle it all up and then all of a sudden just like freak out on you. And I think I've gotten better over that over time, but especially in my 20s, like if you would have like came at me the wrong way and then just kept coming at me, I wouldn't have said anything. I would just punched you in the face, or I would have just yelled at you, like, and you would have felt like, whoa, where'd that come from? But
It's
it's
really
because
hard to get over traumatic things. Like for me, communication and like you can't even tell because I like to talk and I talk a lot. But it's hard for me to talk about serious stuff. Like really hard. Like my first relationship with my ex-husband, dude, sometimes I would have to like write him a letter and be like, sorry, I can't talk. And then like there's been a lot of times like I couldn't say anything unless I put a whole pillow on my face, and I would have to say it into the pillow, and you would have to try to figure out what I was saying because I can't. And like, I really had to work on that. Like, but like I said, like, you can't tell because I do like to
Well,
talk and I talk a lot and I'm friendly and like personable, but when it's about important stuff, I kind of clam up and I really struggle and like I can't get the words out and like I'll think them, but I can't. And like it terrifies me. And I'm like, oh God, like,
or like I always use like comedy as like a defense mechanism. So if
me
I
too.
get real nervous or if I'm like put in a corner, a lot of times
Everything's a
I'll
joke.
make I'll make a joke, right? Because
Yeah.
it like releases that tension.
Yeah. I do that too. But
And
it's
it's
hard
probably
to like,
from being in that place where like that tension, like you don't like that feeling because that tension, like for somebody else might have just been their dad being mad at them, but for you or I'm just saying for like somebody that came from something traumatic, that could have been their dad screaming why they are a piece of shit and they'll never amount to anything in life, right? So that tension is a lot like it's like coming from like this ball of emotion, and so you just like, nah, I want to get away from that.
yeah, I just want to like clam up and not say anything. And yeah, like you can make a joke about it and it works in a lot of situations, especially when you're with your friends, but like if you're with your lover and you're trying to be serious, not everything's always funny, Deb. Like, and then that's when I struggle with communication.
I don't know. Well, if you talk like you, I don't know.
It's hard to talk about serious stuff.
I feel that. I think I've gotten better at the time, but
I'm
I can
getting better
see-
with time. I'm a lot better than I was like 15 years ago for sure, but I still struggle with it. Dude, it left lasting marks.
Oh yeah, no, they probably in some regards probably will never fully, it'll always kind of be there, which it is what it is.
Yeah. I like to pretend like everybody's had terrible things happening to them so that I don't feel so alone.
Well, I mean, to be fair, like you're not alone. Other people have gone through, horrible things. Like
Everybody's had really bad stuff happen to them.
yeah, I try not to do that whole like thing. I don't know if you've had that experience where people have like, how to say this? They'll almost like have like a weighing contest of like who's like trauma was worse. Like I've told people, like I've opened up to people and been like, yo, this is what I've been through. And then they're like, oh, that's not too bad. I went through, you're like you weren't there. You're like, you don't know. Like, and I've only told you
Right?
like little
Can't
part of
feel
it.
my feelings about it.
Yeah, like, or I told you just like a little snippet. I was like, hey, there's
That
like,
too.
there's way worse things I could go into. Like, just my dad screaming at me. Like, that might have been a lot for me just to tell you that. And then they were like, oh, that's not that
My dad used to hit me.
yeah, it's kind of like the whole like Debbie Downer like
Okay.
kind of thing. Yeah. So I don't know if
Yeah.
you've gone through that, but that like is the worst. I hate when people do that. You're like,
Sometimes, like, okay, I guess I'll listen to you talk about your trauma now.
well, I don't mind if people opening up because I feel like that's a relatable thing.
Well, you can, like, there's a
Right.
back and forth, and that's normal. Like, that's how conversations should be. But when it
It's when
becomes a pissing contest, I don't
It's
want
the
to play your
state-
stupid game. So go ahead and talk about it.
they'll have like this statement, like they're like, oh, that's not that bad. You're like, what?
Yeah. Oh, okay. I guess it wasn't that bad.
Like you don't know. You don't know me.
Yours was definitely way worse.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, no, I try not to do that because it's like you never know. Like we kind of touched on it earlier, like what you went through, someone else could have went through that same experience and it may not have been as bad for them. But for you, it was like been like traumatic as hell. So
That's so traumatic. I have so much issues from abandonment issues, like fear of commitment.
so to kind of go full circle, like you get out of that home and then you go like back to your like parents' house. You're like now you're living with your mom.
Yeah.
And did she realize like when did she realize like, oh, that I probably shouldn't have put her in that home?
when I was like in my 20s.
Oh, it took that long? Like even after the
I didn't try to talk. I was really mad about it. So I didn't try. I'd already tried to talk to him originally on that like 6-month visit, and they chose not to believe me because they had already been told. Because I specifically remember him telling me that, like, oh, they told me you were going to say that. And I'm like you said, sounds awfully sus, but okay.
Yeah, like that automatically. I was like, I don't know, something seems not right. Anytime someone's like, yeah, they're gonna try to tell you, you're like that it's a horrible
Nope,
place
they
to
were
be.
eating it up. Like, yeah, sounds good. Yeah, really helping her.
Correct. Well, and maybe some degree that might be true, like if they were like just really strict. But depends
So
on what my kid came back saying. If they were like, they won't let us talk. You're like, I don't know.
she did end up saying, I forgot what I was going to say. She didn't know about me not being able to communicate her without other people knowing. And I don't remember what she said about the not being able to talk. She probably just was like, oh, that's not that big of a deal or something.
She probably just didn't realize the extent of it. You know, it's kind of like a kid, like,
Yeah.
be quiet kind of thing. Like parents are talking.
Yeah. I don't know. And I kind of also like backed off. Like, okay, if you're not originally going to believe me, like I said, I need to stop or they're going to tell them. And then I'm going to get in really big trouble when I get back. And it's going to be harder for me. So then on my subsequent visits, like you get one at 9 months and one at 12. You start getting one every 3 months after that original 6 months. But you don't get to like go home until like a year. Like at a year, you can go home. And I think I went home for like a week and then had to go back. But
I almost feel like going home would have been like torture. Like you'd have been like,
it was.
you could be like, this is how life could be, but now I have to go back.
Just as soon as you start to get used to that's what life is, yeah, you have to turn around and go back.
So were your parents like pretty strict, like in your household?
Yeah.
Like, was your mom pretty
Not,
strict? Like,
yeah.
so was she like? So maybe that's why the idea of the strictness appealed to her because she already kind of had that like mentality from the
A big
start.
part of why I was so mad at my mom about sending me there is because I just can't like pick through in my brain what made her think that that was like the right choice for like someone she didn't know what to do about for mental health issues. Why is it going to be a place that like for troubled teens that uses corporal punishment? Like, why is that going to be the thing that helped? And like, I know they told her pretty sounding things that would make her want to send me there or whatever, but I'm like,
It probably
not
was
one red flag or like, why did you think that was a good idea? I was
mean,
mad
to
at
be
her for it.
fair, not to like defend your mom, but like it does sound like a lot of parents fell for them. Where they, you know, like you said, there was like 50 girls in that school. Maybe not all of them have their parents release them to there, but
Most
still,
of them.
yeah, they probably were telling him stuff like, "Oh, well, they'll get psychological help," and because
Mm-hmm. They do. Because they want their money, so they tell them what they want to hear. It'll be good for her. We can help her.
so, do you know if it was pretty expensive to go there?
I know it was really expensive to go there, but I had found some information about it a long time ago. It was like a few $1,000s. It was like a salary a month.
Okay,
Like a few $1,000s a month.
so like a couple
Per
grand,
girl.
even if it was 1,000. I mean, if you think if there's 50 girls and it all 1,000 a month, that's 50 G's.
I think it was like 2.
So they're making 100 grand a month off you guys. So they're your meal ticket kind of thing.
Pretty much. And they used us like they would take those of us that were in the choir and like take us around and make us sing for people. So they'd give us donations like at churches. And yeah.
Sorry,
Okay, so
this
during
whole
the
thing is just
summer,
a lot to unpack.
during the summer, our summers consisted of like traveling around to different churches and like singing for them so that they'd give us money and stuff.
But you said that was like an escape, right?
Well, it was nice if you got to be chosen to go with a small group of girls separate from the rest. But if everybody had to go, it was never good.
Oh, okay.
We slept on the floor at a lot of churches, like in the pews. No AC. It wasn't fun. We
So
were really tired. I almost fainted one time because we'd been fucking singing all day and they wouldn't let us take a break or not let us like eat. Singing takes a lot of air, like in muscles, and they don't fucking care. They'll tell you you're faking it and they'll just be like, "Ah," and then you get in trouble because you're sick. It sucks. So it was really tiring in the summers because they like used us like that.
No, I can only imagine. Like, I don't know, like it's kind of crazy because of all of like what you had gone through. Like my image of church and yours are like two completely different things. And I'm not like a full-blooded Christian now. I consider myself agnostic just because I don't want to rule out like the possibility that there could be a creator, but
I do.
I don't know if like there's a Christian God, right? But either way, a lot of my childhood from dealing with with Christianity wasn't bad. Like I remember going to like church lock-ins and having fun with all my friends and stuff.
So yeah, and then that's another thing. Like the church my parents went to and the church I grew up in was not like that. It was like I said, like they had a full band, they had drums, rock music, guitars, but like Christian rock. But still, like there was a woman preacher, like they did all these plays and like it wasn't fun. And then I go there and like
even
can't
like
wear pants and
my wife now, Megan, I met her in a church, right? So it's just kind of crazy to think like just there's those two parallel, worlds, right?
kind of, yeah. Well, there's all different there's other Baptists that aren't fucking psycho like that too. Oh, and another thing that they do is like they only will read the King James version of the Bible. The old King James version, not the new one. The old King James version is the only version of the Bible that's correct and the only version of the Bible they can read.
I gotta say this just because I think it's funny. So my last name is Stewart, right? Well, my relatives, technically I'm related to King James because if you go back far enough, it was King James Stewart.
Damn, so, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's
kind of cool.
I find it funny. Well, I'm sure if we go back in your like history somewhere, like there's either some asshole that wrote something or the whole like mirror thing on the thing threw me off.
I know. I was trying to fix my hair earlier and I keep looking for the wrong side.
Doing it the wrong way. So I am going to be doing like a whole thing on like a whole series on asking the question is do you think Christianity is a cult? And that's really when I'm trying to like boil down into. So do you, from your view, do you feel that Christianity is a cult as a whole?
As a whole.
What was that face? Like,
because it's hard to boil it down to a whole. There's
really
a place I went to, yes, I would say it was a cult. It was really culty. They definitely brainwashed us. There was really weird things about it. But the church I grew up in a cult? Probably not, but is Christianity as a whole a cult?
So this is what's crazy is that like my viewpoint of it, if you go to the definition of a cult, you could almost make the argument, right?
Read it to me.
But that's just obviously people are going to debate this.
Well, yeah, that's what we're doing.
Yeah. So the cult definition, a system of religious veneration and devotion directed towards a particular figure or object. So
Yeah.
it also says
that
a small group
definition.
of people having a religious belief practicing regarded to others as strange or sinister. And then the last one is a misplaced or excessive admiration for a particular person or thing. Now, you could argue like it would fit into one of those, but
Or two.
my point is that like when you're a kid and you're being brought up in like as a kid, I do feel kind of brainwashed. And as weird as it sounds, from being told over and over again
If you
about
don't act right,
God.
you're going to burn in hell for the eternity.
Yeah, and so even like as an
That's
adult,
sinister.
where I'm trying to take like a real more scientific like look at things, like looking at it from like a whole and trying to separate myself, I still like have some of those like remnants of being brought up in a real religious background. And like, like if I feel like I'm going through a hard time, like there's a part of me that like wants to pray. Right. And I don't know, it just kind of burned into my brain. And like it's just kind of weird. It's kind of like I don't have another perspective because it was put on to me.
I get what you're saying because I have felt that. I felt like so like I don't know what else to do. Like, should I pray? But I really went through a lot of phases trying to figure out like if I was going to believe in some kind of God or like what the fuck I really felt like was right. And I studied religion for no reason. I didn't even need to. I just did it for fun in college, like a little bit. So I've actually read the New Testament 7 times. I studied some like different kind of religions and like went to different kinds of churches. So I was trying to like figure it all out for myself. And I would get that feeling like when you're at rock bottom, right? Well, when I really decided like, man, I don't believe in anything. Like, I don't think that there's a real God. Like, I took a lot of philosophy in college as well. So this really helped like seal my decision because I really was able to like think about it and think about it differently and like try to think it through with some logical thoughts, and like stuff like that. When I started really being like, okay, like I don't believe in anything. When I get that feeling when I'm at rock bottom and I didn't know what else to do, and like where used to I'd be like, oh, I should pray. Now I'm like, I just talk to myself. I don't like pray to myself, but I like try to encourage myself. So when I'm like at the bottom pit of despair, instead of calling out for help to a being that I don't even think exists, I'll be like, you can do it, Dad. Like, okay. It's just kind of evolved, I guess, with my belief.
No, I get that. It's a weird feeling like having that like that overall, coming from that spiritual background and like not knowing like, I guess how like you said it really well, and I think everybody kind of goes through that phase of like trying to figure out their own spirituality. So I like if someone's a Christian and they come up to me, I'm not gonna like think we're like bad of them. Like they're on their own, path. But at the same time, like I've debated with other people and then they're surprised on how much of the Bible I actually know. And it's like, well, I did grow up in the church. Like it's not like I just
say.
Yeah,
and I'm like, dude. Just because I don't believe in God, like I probably don't believe in God because I do know so much. But they just assume, oh, if you only knew, then you would believe in God.
And I feel like a lot of Christians actually haven't read their Bible.
They haven't. I know almost none that have.
And so the ones that, I'm not like, and like I said, I'm on my own path, but it's like, I'll ask these like really tough questions and then they'll try to give me an answer. And then I'll start quoting scripture to them. And they're like, what? Like, man, it's like hard to like just think of off the top of my head. But either way, like I've talked to Mormons about like why are they, you know, Christian, or like I've asked them like, do you ever question, because it talks about in the Bible to test the spirits, right? You don't want to just like basically don't just like believe blindly, which I think is actually good. I think that's a good thing. I think you should
Yeah,
question.
you should. That's
And
what I always tell my kids. Like, well, you should do a lot of research before you decide something, and like
the Mormons
figure it
aren't
out.
allowed to like research. They're not allowed to look up on the Bible. I'm like, well, if you read your Bible, it would tell you that you actually are supposed to, and not just to take
Yeah,
everyone's word for it. To like, you know, read your Bible, you know, and test the spirits. Don't just make sure everything isn't just, you know, isn't about. There's a lot of good things in the Bible, so that's
the
what's
thing.
like up too, is that there's a lot of good like teachings, and there's a lot of good like knowledge written in that book. Like people wouldn't have like argued and discussed and like worshipped this book if it wasn't full of good, you know. So there is.
So, but the thing with the Bible is, okay, you know how when people start like arguing about politics and like arguing about most stuff, not most stuff, but there's a lot of things you can argue about, and you can find evidence for whatever you want to believe in. So if you're like, I don't want to wear a mask, you can find all kinds of evidence to say that you shouldn't have to. And if you're like, I think it's right, you can find all kinds of evidence in your favor too. You can find evidence for what you want. The Bible's the exact same way. You can find a scripture for whatever you want to back up in it. So if you want to be fucking psycho cult leader, like you can find a lot of stuff to back it up. If you want to be a really good person, you can find a lot of stuff to back that up too.
So
The Bible has a
also,
lot in it.
can't you take a lot of those like a lot of those scriptures, and if they're held out of context is where they get kind of
Yeah, but nobody
butchered.
cares, and people hold them out of context all the time.
It's like the whole cancellation of Joe Rogan. They like, that's a whole debate, but you know, they did
Like, if
say
you
what he says.
really want to get into it, nothing in the Old Testament really matters anyway, because in the New Testament, Jesus was like, I died on the cross to get rid of all the stuff in the Old Testament. So there is a religion that's like, fuck the Old Testament. And then all these other religions are like, this says not to be gay. I mean, not really, though. Like, you're not reading it right.
Yeah, so that's what's crazy about it. And I don't know, so I have like these mixed feelings, and that's kind of why I want to talk to like I wanted to talk to you, because I felt like you had a very kind of like the opposite of what some of the other people I'm going to interview point of view. Like your point of view is so far removed from, not like in a bad way, I'm just saying like you're an atheist and you went through like a traumatic experience because of Christianity, while like
Okay.
I'm gonna go and I'm gonna try to interview, say, someone else who's like they've gone on mission trips, and you know their whole like being is like from the like, it's like two opposites of the spectrum. And I just thought it would like kind of like asking those questions and like making a whole
That's
series out of it.
interesting.
It's gonna be awesome. But
You can still be a good person without being a Christian.
no, that is definitely true. I mean, to try to wrap this up, just so we're not going too long, do you have like any like final thoughts on like just everything we've kind of discussed? And
No.
I'm gonna put you on the spot, but
But very unspotted at the moment.
so like if people want to like do their own like research on like what are they're closed down now, is what you were saying?
They are, but if anybody's interested, you can look up New Beginnings. We do have like a page on Facebook. We'll let some people come in sometimes, or we're willing to talk to people, or if anybody is like wondering what they should do with their troubled child, like we will help people and like give them options, and it's never going to be to like send them to a place like that. So we do try to like reach out to people. We have stopped a lot of the girls from being sent there, but for research purposes, like, dude, our stories are all over the internet. We've done a lot of like interviews and been on some like news reports and things like that. So you can find information. You just have to look up New Beginnings Girls Academy or Lester Roloff or Rebekah Home for Girls.
Okay. All right, and I think that'll pretty much wrap it up. We'll and I'll put all the links and stuff in the.
I can send you some links too.
You could try to play, but you're never gonna beat me. Look the other way, what I'm doing ain't easy. Bloody hands stained from the people who deceive me. Muddy hands break through the chains, go free me. Looking for change, looking for pain. Pulling a mob, pushing a train. I'll never stop, stick to a lane. Pick up the pieces and go rearrange. I'll be the best above all the rest, put me to the test. Expect nothing less, you check as I'm chess, what's happening next? He got the venom, a tangible weapon, no coming in second. This life is a lesson, he got a new engine from pain, it's a blessing. New focus, no guessing, just bold and obsession, all in his possession. You got their attention, I'll leave an impression and take a redemption. Just kill, no discretion, your mind is a weapon. 11-11, it's time for progression. You could try to play, but you're never gonna beat me. Look the other way, what I'm doing ain't easy. Bloody hands stained from the people who deceive me. Muddy hands break through the chains, go free me. People like sheep move feet, hurt it easy. You don't wanna be fast asleep when they scheming. Better stand tall, ready for a fight, believe me. When they try the chains, you can say no, free me.